So the first topic I want to discuss is the education system. Do you think it works sufficiently? Do you think it's successful in the way they do it? And if not, how do you think it can improve? Is there any tips or advice you would give?
For me personally, I would say I've benefited from the education system. I think it's kind of been like a little upwards journey. Because I went to like a state school, comprehensive school, and I'm at like Cambridge University. And obviously that didn't just happen by like click of the fingers. It was like through hard work, and I think a lot of advantages, and I'll say even some sort of privileges as well, that I had by like mentors and people supporting me. But one thing I do realize when we talk about the education system is we like to, when people talk about the national UK education system, they like to compare it to like Germany a lot, because Germany's education system is essentially free. It's much less classist, as someone might say. So I feel like there's a bit of that in the UK system, whereby you have state schools, private schools, which is already like a big division. So private schools have much more advantages compared to like a state school. And then you have, even within that, you have like different types of grades and things that work out for you to get into university. So like IGCSEs, GCSEs, IB, and there's just BTEC, for example. There's just different ways to get. And I feel like that's to help students, but at the same time, it can be disadvantages. So for example, some universities don't even look at people that have BTECs. So I feel like and also another thing about the education system is that in terms of how it grades, it changes every year. So for example, those A stars and A's, then I remember, like, from what I've heard, about 10 years ago, there was no such thing as an A star, and they brought in the A star. Now they've taken away the A stars, A's, and they brought in 9s to 1s now. And like in 5 years, I'm sure it might change again. So I guess in terms of like the education system, I'll say someone might say that it's quite classist in terms of like the more money you have, the more likely you are to be successful in the education system. However, I would possibly argue that there is, even if you don't have a lot of money, or you're not advantaged to someone else, I would say there's still a chance for you to still prevail in the system. But then again, you have to go out of your comfort zone to do that. I feel like there's a lot of programs out there, a lot of student educational programs. For example, to help students against Oxbridge, there's Target Oxbridge. But a lot of those programs, again, is usually London-centric, it's quite hard to get onto, and you have to be very, very academic to get onto these programs. And if you're not the conventional student, the student doesn't listen in class, the student doesn't do his homework, I think you'll find the education system very, very hard to kind of maneuver yourself in and navigate yourself in. And I feel like there's this thing around the education system whereby if you're not academically brilliant and you're not, responsive in terms of like listening to your teachers, doing as the school system tells you to do, you find yourself in a place essentially being rejected by the system. And I feel like where all the exclusions and students being left out, students feeling ostracized comes from. So I feel like there's more work to be done. But I feel like the best way to do it is through like these programs and having a less, because I think there's quite, as much as I think it's good, I think there's also a bit of toxicity within it, having a quite competitive education system. And I thought there's a bit of that, especially within boroughs, whereby this school's competing with this school, and the students that don't do well, they kind of kick them out. That kind of thing is what I feel like is quite, as much as it is to get the best of the best, at the same time, the people that are not the best of the best do get left out. Essentially, anyway, having a good education system sets you up for having a good corporate job, or just a good job in general. But yeah, those are like my thoughts around the UK education system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think people learn in different ways. So I think if you're not academically if you're not an academic person, like you prefer working with your hands and stuff, you're going to struggle. And I think even like, it serves a purpose in terms of like going to uni and then getting like certain jobs. But for me, like I was quite academically smart, but I didn't want to go to uni. I knew like that wasn't the path for me. And so I think for me, something that I struggled with was feeling supported in those next steps. So like, what are you doing after school? Because it's like you do your GCSEs, which is sort of narrowing it down a little bit to the subjects, and then A-levels, if you're going to do A-levels, narrows it down even further. So then it's like, all right, well, I've got these 3 or 4 subjects which I then need to pick a degree linking to. And so I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure to feel like you've got it all figured out, feel like at 16 when you're choosing your next steps at A-levels and stuff, to really like know what it is that you're going to do afterwards and plan really far ahead. Yeah, and then like just not sort of having support with other options. I think it's either you go to uni or you do an apprenticeship, but the apprenticeships are very like practical, which again wasn't really my thing. I was like, I don't really want to do like joinery or engineering or anything. Like, I don't really know where I stand. So I think, yeah, that's where there could be some improvement, sort of having more options, or at least being aware of them, because before, when I was at school, I had no idea what coaching was. So I wouldn't have known at that time.
Yeah, I've literally just left the quote unquote education system. I graduated this year from.
Congratulations.
So thank you. But my experience completely has been I would say at each stage has been quite different. So I went to a public secondary school, which in a sense midway turned into an academy. So that was an experience in itself. You know, that's when I kind of start to see the commercialization of education, and how there's actually a business behind education, and how everything in this world is really a business. You know what I mean? Even though things might be free, you might feel like, you know, obviously it's there for a positive purpose. Everything is about business. You know what I mean? It's not always about money, but it's about results, or money, or both. So then after that, you know, it was kind of a bad school, turned into like an academy. You know, lots of changes happening. Then I left that school. Then I got into a selective sixth form because of my GCSEs. But then even then, my selective sixth form was pretty weird. In a sense, like it was. I don't know if you guys know about Harris Academies at all, or Harris schools. So they're like an academy.
Okay.
And I went to a sixth form called Harris Westminster. And at the time when I joined, I was like the second cohort of people joined. What they had done is they had partnered with the Westminster Boys Boarding School, which I'm sure you guys probably know, the private school, and mirrored their curriculum, and essentially wanted to provide provide an experience for smart kids from poor backgrounds to help them get into university. And by mirroring their curriculum, it meant we had it was really cool, man. And the sense was hard. So, for example, weird things such as going to school 6 days a week. So Saturday coming in, because they were a boarding school, they had Saturday school. So we had Saturday school, but we weren't boarding school. We was traveling into Westminster. We also had cool things such as, you know, being able to use some of the resources. So sometimes some students went into the private school for classes. Teachers taught them, and also cool things such as having assemblies in the Westminster Abbey, because that was so. And then after that, but then the main reason was to get students to university. But I've always been a bit of a rogue individual. Always wanted to. I don't mind following the path or following the route, but I want it to make sense. I've always been the kid that would ask the teachers, "Why are we learning this?" Like, I've always been the "Why are we learning this?" kind of person. Why are we doing this? And if you can answer it, cool, I'll do it. If you can't answer it, then I'm gonna, you know what I mean, start to question. You know what I mean? And I think more people should do that. And I think that's where the education system. I'll get into that, but I think that's a starting point for reform. Okay. And then after sixth form, I actually went on to do a degree apprenticeship instead of going to university. So a degree apprenticeship was essentially 2-in-1. So I did a degree whilst working at a company, and the company I worked at was an education company called Pearson. So like education has been part of my whole life so far. Pearson is a company who owns the exam board EdXL. They also own the BTEC brand. They're the biggest education company in the world. And then I was studying as well at the same time, and the company was paying for my degree while I was working there for the past 3 years. So each stage of my education journey has been different. I've learned so many different things. So it's allowed me to have, I think, a massive holistic view of the education system. And one thing I can definitely say is there needs to be, what I say is it works for those who fit in, but if you don't fit in, you literally have nothing else. Like you're yeah, it's either like it's like a square, and if it's a square, and if you learn like a square, you can fit into the slot. If you learn like anything else, you're gonna have issues.
Yeah.
You might get through by being reformed a little bit. You know what I mean? Like if you're circle, you might, if someone pushes you a bit more and they rough your edges, yeah, you can get in, but you have to change yourselves in a certain way to get through and to reap the benefits. And I think that's wrong. I think that's what needs to change. I think because I struggled a lot trying to, because I didn't want to go to university. I for example, I had a business. I still have the business. I started a business when I was in sixth form, and I was really entrepreneurial, and I wanted to. I felt like I was able to. I'd benefit more by getting work experience in a corporate company, so I can learn how to build my business a bit more. And and that option wasn't supported in any way possible, because the only thing they were trying to prepare you for was to go into a top university. And I was the first person in my sixth form to ever do a degree apprenticeship, and now they support it more. But I think awareness needs to be done more, and I think schools and the systems need to look at if someone is not a square, man, this doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. It just means you need to have more options.
Absolutely.
You need to have more options, man, because everyone's different, and I think they're realizing a lot more because there's more and more options coming up. And what's really crazy is that I think the education system, the traditional one, is actually becoming under threat. A lot of private companies are tapping into education, such as Google, such as Skillshare, such as a lot of people realizing that you don't need to go to quote unquote an institution to learn. The internet you can learn anything you want from the internet, absolutely anything you want. The only thing I think at the moment was the certification of or the institution, but even now there's courses you can do online that certify you, and you can. I've known people who've got completely different, like this lockdown. They've learned how to code, program something. They've learned how to do something else just by learning online. Got a certification from this company, and they've got a new job. Something they could have studied for university for 3 years, being like 45k debt, and they've paid like £1,000 or something. You know what I mean? And I think also the education system needs to understand that. I think there's a. By the way, if I'm talking too much, please stop me. But I think there's a massive divide between what businesses and what skills companies are looking for. I think the change isn't happening quick enough. Like the way companies are working, the way the world is moving, I think it's adapting too fast for the education. At the moment, the education system to adapt in terms of the important skills that need, especially like I think there more needs to be done to understand, because there's kids who go to university, get these degrees and can't get a job because they haven't got the skills and experiences that the business look, and then they feel like they've been lied to their whole life. I know people who've had that experience, and it's not great, man, because you was told just follow what we say and you'll be cool. You know what I mean? And that you go through that, and you know what I mean, you realize that it's not enough. It's not enough to just get good grades. It's not enough at all.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I was a person who was a rectangle trying to fit in a square, for example. But I really do get your point with that. I wasn't a fan of school at all, and realized after I left that education had helped me become the person I was after. I then realized, wow, like education is really vital. And I didn't want to go to university, so I did look into apprenticeships, which Kristi is true. They don't have enough option or choice, I believe, as well, when it comes down to looking into apprenticeships, because for me, I always found that it was engineering or building, and that's not the field I want to be in personally. I was more onto the kind of music path, but the difficult thing I had for me is that A-level, I didn't study music. However, music has been a part of my life throughout my whole life outside of school. So all those things that you're saying, even talking about the grading system 1 to 9, I was the guinea pig year to have the grading 1 to 9, and we were like, what the hell? Like, we've studied this curriculum all these years, and now last minute we're changing into this whole different system. Like, what's going on, and they're telling us, oh, we're just seeing how it goes with your year, and if it works out, but who knows. So we're kind of chucked in the deep end kind of thing. But no, I totally agree with everyone. I think there are tips there and advice to kind of enhance the education system to fit people that don't feel comfortable or in a less privileged way, or so definitely thank you guys for speaking upon these vital matters and giving your opinions and advice and tips and stuff, because I feel like there's an audience out there that needs to hear these things, particularly those who don't have a role model to look up to, or things like that. So definitely thank you so much. If you want to shout out any of your businesses or your social media accounts that connect you to these great opportunities, go for it.
Everyone's shy. Firstly, I should say well done. Thank you, Jasmine, for hosting. You was a great host. So thank you for the hosting this conversation. Good job. And also massive thank you to the guests as well, Kristi and James, you as well. Honestly, love your opinions, and I think I'm going to see you guys on Forbes very soon, so I have no doubt about that. But my Instagram is @CEO Sam. If you guys want to follow me, that's my personal page. That's my business profile page. Instagram, Twitter, @CEO Sam. And my platform I was talking about is called @Worth of Mouth. So worth as in like the value of something. So @Worth of Mouth. And that's for like positive content for young people, career opportunities for young people. And just kind of a breath of fresh air, amongst the, saying about why social media is important. We're kind of using that for positivity. So, yeah.
I want to say thank you to Ahead of Time Academy. Thank you to Zach Fortag for actually inviting me here. And thank you to Jasmine for being such a great host. And Sam and Kristi for being amazing guests as well. My Instagram handle is @JamesAppiah. And then my Instagram for my business that I co-run is @BlackHappyPartners. And we just literally share finance news, finance tips, finance motivations, just to help people increase their financial literacy overall.
I'm going to echo that and just say, once again, thank you to everybody as well. And thank you to anyone who's listening to this, actually, taking the time to listen to it. My Instagram's Kristi Bergman Coaching. So Kristi's spelled with a K, and Bergman's Bergman. It's a bit of a funny spelling. Similar to Samuel as well, lots of positive content. Lots of real content as well. I show up on my stories quite a lot, just being authentic, sharing my thoughts as well. My website is kristibergman.com as well, if people are interested in figuring out a little bit more about what I do through my coaching as well.
Thank you so much, guys. Just quickly before we all leave, I just need to shout out Ahead of Time Academy. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk with amazing guests and talking about really important topics that I feel that really need to be touched upon. So make sure you subscribe to their channel, and next week tune in for our next discussion.